over at the Norfolk Cottage Garden again for the weekend, and we've got the first of the autumn flowering crocuses just starting to poke through the ground and give us this beautiful display, closed clump of lovely pinky mauve flowers with their bright orangey yellow stamens. And these are coming through very early this year. We're still in the latter half of August, still got a week of August to go. Wouldn't normally expect these to be flowering until well into September. We've got some more to show you around the front of the cottage. This little planting I think is probably the same variety as the one in the rose border around the back. And these are planted just in a very dry area, a rain shadow really under the big wisteria that grows on the side of the Norfolk Broads cottage here, and give us this beautiful display of little crocus flowers. Really, when you really wouldn't expect crocuses in England, August and September. This little patch by the side of the Christmas rose was where we earlier in the season found massive bulbs pushed through the surface of these autumn crocus. So these have been replanted. You can just see the flowers starting to emerge through the soil there. These were the size of onions, these bulbs, beautiful orangey brown clean bulbs just sitting on the surface. We initially thought something maybe had dug them up, but I think they just crowded themselves and pushed themselves through. So we were able to divide this clump, and we actually took some back to the farm to plant in the planters either side of the front door. There are multiple different varieties of autumn crocus. We've got quite a few to show you over the next coming weeks, we hope, including a spectacular double that we grow here on the Norfolk Broads. This lovely little patch of autumn crocus is growing in some very dense shady beech woodland here in Oxborough Hall in Brecklands in Norfolk. A slightly pinky mauve tinge to these, but the overall effect when they're grown like this in dense shade is of an almost white flower. The stems certainly are taller than they should be because of the lack of light here, and blanched white. Reminds me of blanched asparagus really. And what a lovely little highlight of colour on this beechwood floor with the first fallings of the autumn leaves. They're coming through really nicely. These two little patches of autumn crocus probably been here for, work this out, probably 50 to 60 years, and I guess they were planted around the base of this walnut tree when that first went in, when this dell was originally planted by the previous owner in the 1960s. They're doing very well, but we keep trying to remember to divide these because they, when the leaf comes up, do appear to be pretty overcrowded. But then every year we tend to miss that opportunity between the leaf dying back and the flowers emerging as they have here in early September. And they are a beautiful little splash of colour down here in the dell. This little patch of autumn flowering crocus now been in bloom here for around 2.5 weeks, and this is probably just a single bulb that's giving this continued display. And they come up in sequence. You'll see the older flowers, the dried out brown ones from the very first, and the more recent flowers again which are dying off. But as they go, a fresh crop come up from the centre of this crown, and this will go on flowering in this fashion for around 3.5 weeks. And this is the original patch where we found just lying on the surface earlier in the summer about half a dozen really good size autumn crocus bulbs. They've been growing here for about 3 or 4 years and had outgrown themselves and pushed themselves onto the surface. And when we saw that, what we did was start to explore just below the surface very gently, and we found a total of probably around 15 to 20 good sized bulbs which we were able to spread around various parts of the garden, and we replanted this area with some of the larger of the bulbs, and they will grow here nicely now and do exactly the same over the next couple of years. So if you do see the corns starting to come through the surface and you've had a good flowering crop the year before, probably a good idea to start looking just below whether they are ready for division, and they will propagate themselves in that natural form without you having to do anything, and give you a succession of bulbs that you can move to different areas in the garden. This little area was also filled with those bulbs, and they've come up nicely. These were the smaller of the bulbs, so there's not quite as heavy a profusion of flowers coming off these, but hopefully these will get going here. It's quite a sunny position, although it is overshadowed by a wisteria growing right up this wall, so we will have to watch that this doesn't get too dry, particularly in peak summer. We'll see how they get on over the next couple of seasons.